The views and opinions expressed in the following podcast do not necessarily reflect those of the producers, the affiliates, or digital platforms hosting this podcast. All content is for the purposes of education, conjecture, and at times entertainment. We promote inclusiveness and diversity. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to Into the Deep with Jay Costa.
Welcome to Into the Deep. I'm Jay Costa. I am rapturous about today's guest. She is a professional illustrator and graphic artist. I would even consider her a visionary artist. She creates metaphysical, fantasy, sci-fi, and surreal art. And I just absolutely loved our conversation. Today's guest is Kamora Jones. Her love of designing worlds and environments of all kinds is absolutely evident, especially in her interest in the visual development of worlds, stories, and ideas. We talk about so much in this episode. We talk about what it means to be a creative-minded person. We talk about being our authentic self. We even talk about leaving a part of ourselves imprinted in what it is that we're doing. I just want to get right into it. So join me as we seek light and journey into the deep with Kamora Jones. Enjoy. Thank you so much for joining me. This is awesome. I'm so glad we finally were able to make this work.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I mean, this is really great. I just love connecting with folks who are interested in consciousness and expanding the mind and expanding the journey. And you are one of those individuals in that space. And so it's been a while, we've been trying to connect. And so I'm very, very happy to be connected with you. It's really great.
Oh, likewise. I'm just so ecstatic this is finally happening. So I know who you are. Could you share with our listeners and our viewers who you are and what it is you do?
So my name is Kamora Jones. I am what you may call an artist of consciousness. A metaphysical artist, if you will. I am a professional graphic artist and illustrator. I've been working in a corporate game dev studio for about 15 years. I've been drawing and painting since I was 3. I'm in my 40s now. And drawing and painting is my favorite thing to do. I grew up very religious, left the church I grew up Christian Pentecostal, left the church about 12 years ago, something like that. And, kind of went on a path of self-discovery. And my whole life, I've had lucid dreams. I've had, metaphysical sort of experiences. I've had a lot of experiences during hypnagogic states and lots of deep meditation stuff. I was very interested in my youth. I was very interested in the sort of mystical aspects of Christianity. And so, the Ezekiel's vision and the vision of the cherubim and the vision of the seraphim and stuff, in the Old Testament, New Testament of the Bible, and just trying to understand what that is. And so years later, after my spouse and I left the church in about 2016, started feeling sort of a calling, from my guides or from the cosmos or whoever, or from God or whatever. And because I feel like God is very separate from religion. And kind of got into the study of past life regression, read Michael Newton's book, Journey of Souls, and started listening to some Terence McKenna and just kind of trying to go as deep as I can, and then trying to figure out how I might connect with higher consciousness, how I might facilitate a type of experience where I can get the kind of connection that I need to have a sort of a true sort of identity connection with who I am and with how maybe I could be thinking about my place in collective consciousness. And so 2017, I live in Vegas, 2017, marijuana became legal here, not condoning the use of any drugs or anything like that. But I basically, one of the things that I heard from Terence McKenna and from a few other people that you could use edibles as sort of in order to have a type of psychedelic experience. For some people, I didn't grow up doing anything. I didn't grow up doing weed or psychedelics or anything. I didn't grow up with any of that. So basically, I use edibles as sort of a pathway, and that's kind of how my transmigration series got started. My transmigration series is a metaphysical series that talks about these higher dimensional beings who are trying to help humans evolve. And I'm basically creating the illustrations and the writings as a sort of conversation between the viewer and between these beings. Do I believe these beings are real? Not necessarily. I do believe, though, that it is important to, through art and through creative endeavors, to have those conversations that are important to us right now. And I believe that we're in a time right now where spirituality is kind of on the chopping block. And I do believe that, but I believe that spirituality has a use in our current, space and time with technology, with culture changing. I do believe it has a space. And I believe that it has a really strong space through art and through creative expression. And so the series is a way to discuss metaphysical concepts, topics, ideas in a creative way, and to help souls themselves become more creative. So I've always been a very non-conventional artist, a very unconventional thinker. At my day job, I have to be more conventional and draw whatever they tell me to draw. But, but yeah, the series is really all about that sort of visualizing that which is unseen, which I've always been interested in since I was in the church and beyond. Yeah.
Oh, gosh, love it. There's and it's great because I can align with just that fascination of those, those visions, those ecstatic visions of, when you go back through like Old Testament and like with Ezekiel especially. So I'm so glad you mentioned that,
Yeah.
and where we're at with like thinking about what consciousness is and still trying to really, it's in a fetal stage, in my opinion.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And so when we start thinking about what it was that Ezekiel could have been witnessing,
Mhm.
when we start talking about that and we start thinking about maybe some of the connections with whether we think extraterrestrial, whether we think, what it is, otherworldly beings, right? And I love that you're saying like spirituality is on the chopping block. So there's so many directions I can go in. So I'm so excited about this.
Yeah.
So as you can tell. So this is great. This is like perfect. So I guess where do you think, in your opinion, just
Mhm.
your opinion today, right now in this space and time?
Yeah. It's going
What-
to change. Yeah.
Right. I love it. Where do you think right now, currently, where do you think that Ezekiel was? Do you feel like at this point, were they otherworldly beings and these visions and these things were just the best way that maybe someone was trying to describe it in antiquity?
Well, what I like about the vision of the cherubim specifically is this description that is given of them. The four faces, the lion, the ox, the eagle, the man. The eye is all over the body. The feet like a calf, the hooves like it's like the hands like a man, the feet like a calf, I think is what it says, and then the four wings. That is in all the things that I've studied. I got heavy into study when I was younger. In all the study that I've read, that is really sort of a composite of Earth beings, and of Earth consciousness in a sense. And so when you're talking about land, you're talking about air, you're talking about all these different components. And yeah, some being was trying to communicate with Ezekiel about the all-encompassing nature of God and how God was able to sort of define creatively what we are from a philosophical standpoint, because no one talks about God as being a sort of creative philosopher. Then, in my opinion, that would be the way to do it, is to give sort of a composite image of what that could represent in a way that is familiar with them for their time period. And so I think that it's a really great image. I think the vision of the cherubim is a really great image for what the kind of experience one could have on Earth in the body that you incarnate into, whether it be a human body or whether it be an eagle or a snake or a fish or whatever it is that you find yourself in. I think it's a great composite image. And I think that dreams work that way as well. The way that your mind, sort of facilitates a space for you to either process what happened during this day or process what's going on in your life, or whatever. It could be anything. It could be a dream. It could be something from a higher dimensional being. It could be something that where, I know a lot of people talk about psychedelics in ancient times. I heard some rabbis talk about, the tabernacle, the most holy place, and the acacia wood burning, and how that could have created sort of a psychedelic space as well. And so it could have been a lot of things going on.
Right. And then we like parallel that with like, with Terence McKenna, we think about the stoned ape theory and all of these
Yes.
different fascinations, like how we could evolve so quickly. And so what is your take on that?
Well, any number of things could be going on, right? Ancient cultures. I mean, everybody learned this in social studies, right? And in history class that ancient cultures, especially sort of cultures where the shamanic, structure was sort of the basis of how the culture was able to like evolve, these tribal cultures. Any of that could have been possible. I mean, Moses and the burning bush, that could have been some sort of psychic, some sort of psychic, psychedelic sort of vision that, him being, whether that was true or not, right?
Sure.
That could have been some sort of, that could have been some sort of way in which, that information was being processed, or it could be a story, a way for us to understand God's walking among humanity in a sense. So I think that, obviously psychedelics have always been a part of shamanic cultures and tribal cultures. But I also believe that people try to maybe make up stories to try to explain certain doctrinal points of view. And so I think that fantasy and reality can become blurred together when those sorts of strategies are taken in order to get doctrine into a culture, get it seeded into a culture in order to create awe and fear.
It's so fascinating because, especially when we think about psychedelics, like what could be the origin of these visions? Like where are they coming from? Right. Like, cause
Right.
sometimes, it's subconscious, but then there's like things that are so fantastical that
Mhm.
maybe someone hasn't experienced in their real life, but yet they're having this vision of it. Like where do
Well,
you think that's coming from?
Well, I do believe I am a spiritualist. I am a spiritual person. So I do believe in higher dimensional beings. I do believe in God. I do believe in collective consciousness. I do believe that souls are connected. I believe it's like a type of network, if you will.
Mm,
Some could see it from the point of view that maybe some type of God being or some type of construct is holding all together, but we're all a part of it. We're all
mm,
integrated into it. And so, in my opinion, like if we're trying to help each other evolve, maybe it's very subconscious. Maybe it's some sort of hyperlink where we're all trying to help each other evolve and we're all passing images back and forth. And this is something that is fundamental to consciousness. It could also be that maybe, as I've heard, a few people talk about lately, maybe this God individual is trying to grow their consciousness. And in a sense, we are sort of like these nodes in the body of God, having these different experiences in order for this God being to become more aware of itself. And so, in a sense, maybe we don't have as much control as we think we have. And this feedback that we have between so called higher consciousness and
mhm.
normal consciousness could just be one of the ways in which we get the downloads that we need in order to evolve and to expand, real-time consciousness and spiritual consciousness, whatever it is.
Right.
And so I think that all these things that people are having, near-death experiences, I believe in all of it. I mean, I'm very skeptical because I came from the church, but
Sure. Yeah.
yeah, through my hypnagogic states, through my first psychedelic experience, my second psychedelic experience, even though I'm using, edibles, which people are like, I don't know. I mean, that's where my transmigration series came out of. Those concepts came out of that. So
Right.
yeah,
And I think everybody's affected differently, and like I don't,
yeah.
I don't really talk about this really often, but like I know that the very first time that I ever had any kind of ecstatic vision or thing was from edibles. And
Hmm.
and it was like unbeknownst to me, and everything from that point on in my life changed. Everything changed. The
Hmm.
way I viewed life, ego death was experienced.
Hmm.
I really viewed a lot of my, you know, idiosyncrasies a lot differently. I
Yeah.
realized the errors in my ways that I hadn't experienced yet. So it
Yes.
unlocked so much.
Yes.
Yeah, and,
Yes.
and and yet it's taboo.
Yeah. It is. It is. But that's culture, right? I mean, where
Mhm.
is it taboo? That's the question, right?
Ah.
So in our current sort of political climate, I mean, it's been this way for a long time.
Sure. Yeah.
LSD was legalized for a while there, right? Back in the
Mhm.
back in the day, and then they shut that down. But it's interesting that there's a lot of research being done now, right?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of, ketamine research going on and
Right.
clinics that you can go to for that. I mean, my thing is this, depending on where you come from, and I think this is really an issue of consciousness. I think this is an issue of the soul. And I think of the soul as the actual personality. So the soul comes into the body, the soul has an experience. I think of the body as a vessel. I think of the soul as the identity. That's how I think of
Yeah.
it. Uh, I think that maybe we're having this experience in the space we're in right now because this is the experience we're supposed to have, and maybe we're supposed to push. And I don't think anything's a mistake per se. I do think, however, that the fact that we're able to talk about these things right now, and to create art and to create music and to create conversation and philosophize and have this sort of dialectic conversation about what could come from it and the uses and possible negative aspects of it speak very much to the potential for humanity in the near future and in the far future. I think there's a lot of ground to be covered, even by just embracing it, just as, if nothing else, than just philosophical conversations. I think it's great. Yeah.
I have to agree with that wholeheartedly. Just,
Mhm.
I mean, these conversations that are happening today that, people couldn't have 5 years ago, 10 years
Yeah.
ago, that
Yeah.
people, but around consciousness and spirituality, where especially with anyone that might have any kind of leanings towards an organized or monotheistic perspective,
Mhm.
if you will, right? But it has to have come from somewhere, in my opinion,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
I agree. I think I mean, I'm spiritual. I
Mhm.
think it comes from other beings, another space, another time, another perception.
Yeah.
I, I I I believe in this idea. So my last psychedelic experience I have what I do is, because I can't. It's the stuff is like really heavy for me. So I do an edible, like one edible a year, maybe once, like twice a year, or something like that. So the last one I had, it was basically like showing me some of this I could see, some of this was more perception. It was showing me this kingdom, this celestial kingdom of these beings, and I was just this little thing. And there were all these other little things, these other little conscious beings. And these beings weren't really doing much other than analyzing the actions of us souls and trying to see what we are going to actually do with the little bit of permission we had to do what we wanted to do. And it was like, let's see what they do with this. Let's see what they do with that. And they're very much like the beings that I draw in my art. This idea of having conversations about, let's see if they do this. Let's see if they take this bait. Let's see if we put in this information, what we get out of it. Let's see if this plus this equals this. And it's very much in line with some of the mystical aspects of Christianity. When you read about what angels are, when you read like the Book of Enoch, for instance, when you read
Oh,
about this whole this whole thing about these angels and what they did and how some of them rebelled and some of them were mad because God created
mhm.
humans and all these different things. It's like maybe there is some sort of society, if you will, at some level of perception that maybe we don't have access to while having the human experience. You talk about reality frames. There could be many different types of reality frames, right? You talk about multiverse theory. This is what a lot of quantum physicists and stuff are talking about right now. So there's a lot. I think there's a lot going on, and I think the fact that we're able to have these connections with higher consciousness or with different aspects of ourselves speaks to this idea that maybe scientists don't like the fact that you're using witnesses and you aren't using hard data, you aren't doing peer review,
Mm.
but people are having these experiences. People are having near-death experiences. People are reporting what they've seen, what they've accessed. You have
Right.
people like Eben Alexander, right? The neuroscientist, right? Talking about his experiences, talking about it in a very clinical, medical kind of way, what happened to him. And many, many more, right? So I think there's a lot going on. And I think the way to do it, the way that I tell people to deal with it is to draw it, paint it, make music about it. Let's see if we can sort of catalyze it and do something with it. And maybe we can, I have nothing against entertainment, but I think there's a lot of ground to cover in entertainment spaces. And I think there's a lot of stories that haven't been told yet. You know, that's kind of where
Oh,
I'm at with it.
I love that. And that's why with your artwork, it's visionary art as far as I'm concerned in every aspect.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. I feel like it's clearly it, and this is just my humble, feeble opinion. There's, there are folks, we're conduits, where there's there's a reason why we're receiving a signal, and we're
Hmm.
able to, there are certain people who are able to receive a signal, and there's certain
Hmm.
people who are able and capable of actually putting that, on paper, on canvas,
Yeah.
what have you.
Yeah.
And when you're painting, is it what you're feeling in the moment, or is it something that's already seen and something that's already felt?
It's both.
Oh,
So, yeah. So, what I generally do is I have a type of meditation that I do sometimes. Generally speaking, because I'm already connected and I'm already linked to that type of energy, it's very easy to just set an intention and then it kind of comes back to comes to me right away. A lot of artists will actually talk about that. Salvador Dali had a technique where he would use hypnagogic states, right? Where he would put like a bell or something on his chair and like so that it would wake him up whenever he started falling asleep, so that he could actually grab the image, right? So what I basically do is I have this technique where I close my eyes, I sort of disassociate in a sense to where I find myself in the darkness, and I imagine myself as a point. And from that point, which is like being a soul, right? I send out the intention of what I'm trying to get. Sometimes it's not an intent, it's a non-intention. It's give me what you want me to receive. And because I'm already connected to the particular frequency that I get these images from, whatever being it is I'm connected to, whatever beings, whatever sort of group, whatever sort of energy I'm connected to, I'm going to get something, I'm going to get that sort of feedback regardless, because I've sort of committed myself to that. And so when I talk to people about developing their skills and talents, I hate to say it, and this might sound very sort of toxic to some people, but you have to give yourself to your path. You have to give yourself to your work. And if you can do that, you can become a conduit, in my opinion. I think all humans have that capacity to be a sort of a tool of consciousness, if you will. Understanding that this experience I'm having is a very limited experience. I'm not going to be Kamora forever, right? I mean, yes, it is all about the now. But so, I get an image, and then sometimes the image is sort of a shadowy image. Sometimes it's a little more clear. If I can really sit for a while and I have the time to kind of sit, I can imprint it a little bit easier. And then other times it's just an idea that comes to me. It's something that's going on in my life, or like a couple words. Now, sometimes I actually get the writing before I get the art as well. And the writing kind of feeds into the art as well. And the writing comes to me kind of like a person speaking to me, sort of like a sage or like some type of mentor. So the whole idea of mentors in the transmigration world, these transmigrators sort of teaching each other and then trying to impart this wisdom to humans, is very much always been a part of my spiritual life as well. And I've always felt someone, something, a group of beings speaking to me. And so a lot of it is very conversational. My spouse is, will hear me talking to myself. and it's like I'm getting these ideas and I'm drawing them, and people get a lot from them. So apparently there's something going on. And it's always been that way since I was a little kid. Yeah.
I love that. And I'm so glad you like already the things that I have in my mind as I'm listening, and like you're
Yeah.
taking it there. So it's great. I feel like we're on the same wavelength here. I love that.
The other thing too, that I'd like to share with you is that, when I'm drawing, it's not always fully formed either, right? The artistic process, creating an artistic piece. I don't know if you draw or paint at all, but you do you?
I
Yeah.
like to draw. I haven't painted in forever, but drawing yeah. Oh gosh, I enjoy it.
Yeah. And so I'm working, for the most part, I mostly work digitally. Sometimes I'll draw the whole thing out. I'll lay it all out on paper and graphite, whatever. Doesn't really matter. The process of working on a composition is also sort of a conversation as well. And so sometimes, yeah, I have the idea, I have the silhouette, I have the sort of the construct, but yeah, I'm going to put a bit of myself into it as well. And then the light language that I put into it is some of that is very sort of precise, and some of that is just me writing and just trying to put energy into curves and lines in order to embed positive energy into each image, so that people can get that feedback on a different level, as opposed to just the visual level or the emotional level. Yeah.
Yes, I love that, and I think there's something so powerful about that. And there's something to be said about that. Is that whether one articulates it as that, the imprint of the soul, and putting it
Hmm.
into what it is we're doing while we're
Right.
creating and manifesting, and there's this like desire. Why do you think we want to create? And I know there's people out there who say, I'm not creative, I'm not this, but like, I think humans are really far more creative than
Yeah.
they give themselves credit for.
Yes, we are creative beings. We are, I mean, I guess I'm a creationist in the more traditional sense. So creators create creators,
Mm,
people who can grow children inside of themselves. They create beings who are creative. Everyone's creative. The problem is the term creative, right?
mm,
The syntax, the
right,
definition. The
right.
term creative implies artistic creativity, it implies imagination, whatever. Everyone's using their imagination, whether you're fantasizing about something or whether you're or whether you are creating a piece of work or whether you're writing a contract or whether you're managing people. You may have to be really creative with this employee over here. You may have to be really friendly with this employee over here. Everything is a creative endeavor. War is a creative endeavor. Money, economics is a creative endeavor. Um, I mean, people trying to screw each other over. What I'm saying?
Right.
That's a very creative endeavor to get people
Yeah.
on board with things that don't work for them, right?
Great.
Everyone is a creator. I think it's embedded in us. This is why I think that we are hyperlinked together. I think we are connected to whatever the creator is, even if the creator is actually us and we just don't realize it. You know, we are designed for creative expression. We're designed for creative, propulsion. We are propelling each other into deeper realms of creativity and possibilities. We are exhausting all of the potentials for the potentials that may come. We are embedding ourselves with what we could do as opposed to what we think we can't do. So these dimensions, these sort of fractal creative ideas go on forever. And I think we live in an age, because of computing technology, right, where we can exhaust everything. We can exhaust every permutation of every idea we want. We do not have to wait. For those of you who are interested in being creative, you do not have to wait for corporate entertainment companies to create what you want. You can do it yourself. You can get Adobe Photoshop. You can get Clip Studio Paint. You can get 3ds Max. You can get Blender. You can get whatever sort of software you want. And it won't take you as long as I took to learn how to draw. I mean, you can do 3D modeling. You can learn how to 3D model tomorrow if you want. And so I just like to say that everyone is creative. The misconception is that you're not. The question is, what are you going to do with your creativity? That's my question.
Ooh, what a fantastic question. And why is it, gosh, I think that's the big question for me is how some folks can't step into their own being based on a myriad of factors, clearly,
Mhm, mhm,
socially,
mhm,
politically, whatever, what have you,
mhm,
but
mhm.
what what advice would you give to an individual to be able to step into, you know, knowing themselves and to becoming who they are and having that proverbial faith, I guess we could say, to
Mhm.
experience themselves and be their full selves.
I think it starts with childhood. And I think it starts with going back to, and this is one of the cool things about psychedelics, is psychedelics always take you back to childhood for some reason. It's always like taking you back to like what you felt like when you were innocent and helpless.
Mm,
And so what you like to do when you were a child, a lot of people have said this, but I agree with this. What you did when you were a child, what you loved to do, or what you wanted to do when you were a child, that is of the utmost importance because that is who you were before the world got to you and started filtering ideas into you and started programming you. And luckily, my parents were very supportive of my artistic development. They maybe weren't so happy when I came out of trans, but you know, um, but like I mean, but I have plenty of support elsewhere, right? So the thing is that you have to be able to embrace that thing you love, that thing you're afraid of, that thing that you're like, I don't know if I can make money doing that. Even if it's something you do on the side when you get home from work, even if it's something that you embrace by way of a mentor. Mentors are a great way to sort of figure out where to go. Peers are great also, um, but peers and friends can sometimes be sort of cautionary, like, oh, I don't know, like maybe that's not going to work out for you. So you have to ask yourself the question and ask it without bias. And ask yourself, what is it I love to do? What do I want to do? What do I want to learn? That doesn't mean that you're going to be successful. You're doing this as a life practice. I work professionally as a graphic artist, illustrator, concept artist. But even if I wasn't working professionally, making money doing it, it would still be a life practice for me. I would still be doing it for myself. And I, for a long time, did just do it for myself. And when I found that I could use that as a way to peer behind the curtain, it sort of changed things for me. When I realized that, no, God's not going to just hand me the answers. I need to draw it. I need to channel it. I need to look beyond the veil through the lens of the paper. I need to use the graphite as a sort of light pen in order to illuminate this thing which I desire to see and that I desire to interface with. So what you don't realize is that inside of you is this tool, is this spark, is this energy. That energy can form itself into whatever you want to form it into. And you come preloaded with what you are. And the problem I have in modern day, one of the main problems I have is this idea that, people don't want to believe in the concept of the soul, and people don't want to believe that there's more, and people don't want to believe this, and people don't want to believe that. But, and people want to believe that my job, I just want to be entertained, and I just want to be in a relationship, and I just want to be that. But you have something to give, even if it's something to give to yourself. And so there is a price to pay for incarnating on earth as a human. It is not just about consuming, it is about what you can give back. And oftentimes that giving back, even if it's just giving back to yourself, is in the form of a creative expression in one way or another. This is how we find ourselves. The keys to unlocking who you are and to healing yourself are within. You may need a lot of guidance. You may need some schooling. You may need some training. Of course, everyone does. But ultimately, at the end of the day, what's going to heal you is you. Ultimately, at the end of the day, what's going to heal humanity is humans being creative. We can wait on extraterrestrials all we want. They may never come. They may never show up. Everybody says, oh, they're around, they're invisible, whatever. Doesn't freaking matter. The thing about this is that we can change so many things, and it isn't just about rich people, being benevolent or whatever. We as just common people, I make a good living, but I'm not rich, so we as common people have to do some work. We have to draw some pictures. We have to make some music. We have to write some books. We have to talk about experiences. We have to use the tools and to speak, the truth that we want to see in the world, right? And that's kind of how I think about it. I think that it's not always clear cut. It's not always a drawing talent. It isn't always a dance talent. Sometimes it's very unconventional stuff. You listen to a lot of interviews with, people who may be working like in the adult industry. That's very powerful stuff. Where you see different aspects of society that, people have no problem looking at from the entertainment standpoint, but want to sort of, push those people aside and say, oh, they're defective, they had bad childhoods, this, not all the time. No, we're trying to exhaust every permutation of every kind of experience we can have. In my opinion, that's what God is. If we are God, then we are God. If God is God, then God is God. But that is what God is. It's trying to peer into every molecule, every nanobite of information and pull it apart and see what can come from it. That's what a God does, in my opinion.
Well put. Very well articulated too. And it makes sense when you talk about it in a sense of trying to experience every single facet and every probability, every single incarnation. That's why we're all so unique and all so different, but yet all connected.
Yeah, we have no prejudice is going to be there. The human mind biologically, cells, everything is comparison. It's part of my biology, but maybe it's also part of human culture. It's something we've programmed into ourselves, this idea of comparison. We have to be able to compare, why this looks weird over here because this might be some kind of sickness or or an enemy. So like, yeah. So yeah, we have to be able to compare and contrast and look at things and say, ooh, there might be something wrong with that.
Mm.
But we also have to be aware of when something is a sort of evolutionary process, and when there's something new on the horizon. And we have to be careful, not to be so quick to shut things down, in my opinion. But we also have to be cautious. I'm not against that, of course.
Yeah, I have to agree too. Like with that, it seems just like humans who typically inherently, it just we're so skeptical of change or anything that shakes up the norm or challenges the status quo. Well, no, it's been this way for so long, so it has to stay this way. There's no growth in that
Yeah, yeah,
at all.
yeah. Even scientific theory changes. I mean, it's interesting how you learn stuff when you're a kid, and then they
Hmm.
kind of have to rewrite some rules and stuff. Not that everything completely changes, but we found this other little bit of data that we've had to peer
Right.
review over here. It's always changing. I mean, they want you to believe it in any of its incarnations, but
Right.
everything's always changing. Everything's always evolving. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we touched upon this earlier. We talked about with some of the visions and some of the ideas that you have for the artwork. And so
Mhm.
sometimes you were saying that the words will come first,
Mhm.
and sometimes the art come first, and then maybe by seeing the art, and this is just me theorizing. By
Mhm.
you seeing the art, does that then speak to you, and then you're able to have those words surrounding that vision?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like I said, it's both ways. Sometimes I'll start drawing the piece. The the piece I just posted yesterday, it was kind of interesting because I was kind of like trying to figure out what to draw. I'm very busy. I'm trying to do some NFT stuff with my business partner, and it's like, and my day job's really busy, and my spouse is having surgery Monday, and
Mhm.
nothing bad.
Okay, well, good
But
thoughts. Good thoughts either
yeah,
way.
good. Send me good thoughts. Yeah,
Yeah.
send us good thoughts. And
Mhm.
so there's just a lot going on, and so I'm trying to figure out what to draw. And so sometimes what I'll do is I'll just put pen to screen, and I'll just start drawing, and I'll kind of see what comes out. And I wanted to draw something more about the conversation of how humanity's always perceiving itself from a time standpoint.
Yeah.
And so the being is holding this sort of construct, this sort of loop that shows humans, as a part of the time loop and how we perceive each other through time. And so, people look back at the boomers and they're like, oh, boomers, and I'm a Generation Xer, so I'm sure these young kids are looking back at me like, oh, you Generation Xers, like you guys are going to take over the world, but you all ended up working in corporate anyway.
So true.
you
Yep.
know?
Same.
so so my thing is that, yeah, I mean, that kind of came there, and then the words came from this idea of, a couple of people said, oh, resentment. I don't think wiser people would say, resentment. I don't know. I think we tend to look back on each other, in sort of a very narrative and sort of critical way. We're like, why did you guys do that? Why did you guys screw us like that? Because now we have to contend with this. And so in that sense, yeah, the words kind of came later. But when the words came for this one, this is just kind of an example. The words came as literally like a block of information being recited to me. And so that happens a lot, when it's almost like being read out, and it kind of comes and it sort of develops and it sort of, truncates, and then it expands outward.
Mm.
And that sort of happens a lot, almost like I'm stealing it from somewhere, or like it's being downloaded into me. It's
Ooh.
not hard. This is the
Sure.
thing. But I will say there's something to be said about, doing things for years, practicing, training. I've had some really great teachers and stuff like that. But interesting enough, as you said before, yeah, some people can do it and some people can't.
Right.
And some people can train to do it. Excuse me. So committing yourself to it and saying, excuse me, committing yourself to it and saying, I can be a conduit. I want to know. I want to be the vessel. I need to know for myself. I want to share this with people. I want to share it in a creative way. Maybe that is a type of key. Maybe that is a type of signal that is sent out into consciousness as vibrations. And maybe when the right individuals pick up on it, or the individuals that you sort of connected with or made some sort of contract with, some type of soul contract, some sort of mind contract, telepathic contract, maybe that's where I get it from. I've had friends in the past. I had one of my good friends who I always talked like spiritual stuff with. We were both Christians way back in the day, and we'd always talk about all this stuff and about philosophy, Christian philosophy and Christian mysticism philosophy. And like he'd always ask me, like, where you get that? Where are you getting? Because back in the day when I was in the church, I did a lot of Christian art. I did a lot of like angels and demons fighting. I did a lot of like trying to visualize the spiritual world through the lens of Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
So the battle over the soul. So, so he would ask me, like, where are you getting these ideas from? Like, where are you getting these downloads? Like, where is this coming from? And I could never really answer. I'd be like, I don't know, maybe one of my guides, maybe one of my angels, I don't know. But the fact of the matter now is that I feel like because I've become so proficient at it, and that's not an ego thing, that's just more of it's just become very proficient. It feels like I'm stealing it. It feels like I'm taking it, like someone's just giving it to me and I'm just reciting it. And so maybe that's just how it works for me. But yeah, it feels like the words are being read out, and sometimes the words are read out and then I'm like, okay, I know what image will go along with that. There's quite a few pieces where it's really more about the energy, and through the energy, by feeling the energy and sort of writing that wave of energy, there are words embedded in the energy itself. And so yeah, it's like the 2 feet off of each other, but sometimes they don't. And other times it's really like, hey, let me give you this to you, and I need you to work on this. And I need you to get this done by this day. And you need to post it this day. It's like that sometimes.
Wow. I love that. I love that point that you brought up earlier about like, maybe that's some sort of, frequency or some key or indicator where if we're putting it out there,
yeah.
and we're actually asking for it, right? Ask and thou shalt receive.
Yes.
And it almost feels like that's what it correlates to.
Mm-hmm. And I think intention is powerful, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's, people talk about law of attraction. I don't know, law of attraction could be a lot of things. Law of attraction could be putting it out there. It could be working for it, working hard for that thing, putting yourself in the right space to receive that thing. It could be that, you can ask for $1 million, but it doesn't mean you're going to get it.
Right.
But if you, worked at a company where maybe you could get $1 million bonus or something like that, or you put yourself in the path of a millionaire, or your ex-husband or ex-wife is a millionaire, maybe you might end up with like $1 million. Who knows? But like, I think you have to put yourself in the right place in order to learn. You have to put yourself in the way of the right mentors in order to work at the job that you want. You have to, if you want to learn how to draw a certain way, you might need to study or, get some books from a specific illustrator and study those. I think that's what law of attraction. I think law of attraction is very practical. Mm-hmm. But I also think from a spiritual standpoint, I think this idea of vibrational connectivity is also very practical, because we're always doing that with each other. We're always sending out signals. When you find somebody attractive, you're sending out signals to them. Right. They're going to know. Yeah. It's just the way it is,
100%, and like, I think about that all the time with like, even just, a friend calls or texts and you were just thinking about them and like, yes. Or, we were literally just talking about this, I had that experience personally today at my day job, where I was having a conversation with somebody about a specific thing. Somebody comes through the door and says, hey, can you put it on your calendar to schedule this for me and this person? And we were like, we looked at each other, we were just talking about this. Right. So there's something to be said about like, there's energy being emitted, there are frequencies being put out there, and we're all receptors to it at all times.
And I think that's maybe it's fantasy, but maybe that's a good indicator of where communication's going. So one of the reasons I like using, this writing out the light language on my pieces is because I like this idea of telepathy, like this sort of expansion of conversation, and how so many things are lost in conversation, especially since COVID. And, some of us are still, I'm working on like a hybrid schedule. So like, I'm kind of like, I'm here in my home studio sometimes, and I'm at the office sometimes. Mm-hmm. But, I also do my transmigration art here in my home studio. So it's like, oh God, like I hate, having the two things together, but the thing about it is that, you have conversations over Zoom or whatever. And, things get lost in translation, like really easy. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes you have to write it out. Sometimes you have to, draw it out. Sometimes you have to say, hey, this is what I mean. You're not hearing me. And so I think that's an indicator of how we could start developing telepathic abilities. And maybe that's sort of a a preamble to what is to come. The fact that we're all having those sort of connectivity experiences, this, hey man, I was just thinking about you, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Right.
And
And I think about the visual arts of, if, just thinking about like how many times allegories have been, taught and told through, visual symbols, iconography, and,
mhm,
like to your point, putting in that light language, to be able to continue that conversation, that
mhm.
somebody's going to receive that signal from what you're putting into it.
Yeah, yeah, and you put that intention and someone's gonna feel it. You look at, like, Monet's work, Monet's work was very impressionistic,
Mhm.
and impressionism is basically, trying to embed light in strokes, in brush strokes, and trying to sort of capture, excuse me, trying to capture light in color, and trying to capture light and color in this sort of combination of stroke and technique and composition. And so you are embedding language in your strokes. You're doing that. That's why visual art is such a great way to sort of encapsulate energy. You think about somebody like Kandinsky, if you've ever seen his work.
Oh, yeah.
Kandinsky, his whole thing was the spirituality through imagery, through iconography. And so a lot of these shapes are very primordial, basic shapes, but arranged in a way to where they feel almost like infantile, but they also feel very, permutative. And like, it's just these beautiful constructs. And you're like, oh, I could see the spiritual world as being like that. The spiritual world could have literally nothing to do with human bodies at all. It could literally be straight up information, you know? And so, yeah, visual arts are a great way to explore that and just sort of get out of the box of that everything is humanoid. Everything isn't humanoid. Conversation isn't humanoid. It's multifaceted. It's multidimensional. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I have to ask, who are some of like your influences, like maybe the people who have inspired you? I mean, because I have to feel like every wonderful and great artist such as yourself. I mean, there are going to be artists or people or individuals that just fan that flame. And I'm
Mhm.
curious. I'm curious of who those souls are.
Well, like in my younger years, I went to an arts high school out here in Vegas. It was kind of like fame, kind of. So they had like dance and they had like
Nice.
international studies and they had like visual arts. It was hardcore. It was like college, but like in high school. And we went on a trip to Italy. And so when I was like 18, so I got to see Michelangelo's work, got to see the Sistine Chapel,
Oh my gosh.
and got to see the beautiful sculpture that he did of Moses, which was just so powerful and like all the muscles and everything. And got to see the Pietà in the Vatican and got to see the David, right?
Wow.
Excuse me. And Michelangelo was a particularly powerful influence because of his sort of artistic take on the human body. This idea that it was sort of like a mass of structure and power. And so when I was learning about art and I was learning about visualization, that was really powerful because it showed me that, yeah, this is not necessarily how bodies look, but bodies themselves can be sort of an expression of power, an expression of the majesty of God. And then like as I got a little older too, like I got into the pre-Raphaelites, which they were a group of artists in the 1800s who were trying to sort of get back to classical ideals because the camera was coming out, right? And
Right.
purists always want to like buck back and say no. So Dante Gabriel Rossetti, yeah. So Dante Gabriel Rossetti was really powerful and has literally nothing to do with my work, but his sort of classical take on the form and these sort of classical poses and his sort of use of light. It was very dramatic. It's very dark, sort of occultic, sort of
Yeah.
ominous. Sir Edward Burney Jones was really cool because he did a lot of these really cool sort of like tapestry type paintings and stuff like that, where he had a sort of classical composition. I really like Kandinsky, like I was saying before. Tamara Limpica is really cool. It's very sort of cubist, German expressionism, what I'm saying, but in these very sort of Art Deco kind of like constructs. And as far as like modern artists are concerned, of course, everybody likes Alex Gray, but Alex Gray actually wasn't one of my influences. I have so much respect for him and his wife because obviously they were the forerunners. But I really grew up on a lot of anime. I grew up on a lot of anime and manga. And so, I grew up on a lot of Yoshiaki Kawajiri, so like Wicked City and Ninja Scroll and stuff that's very much sort of exploring darkness and the realms of darkness and the realms of the occult in a very narrative and palatable way. One of the coolest characters, Vampire Hunter D, if you've ever seen, yeah, it is very cool because you have this vampire who is, is sort of cursed in a sense, but is trying to do the best that they can, by, giving humans a chance, so to speak. And so when you think about spirituality, that's kind of what it is, right? I mean, we can draw upon our spiritual powers to move into the future. We can become completely self-destructive. We have both light and dark within us. And there are many others. There's that guy, Ariel Ali. He's a celestial artist. I remember seeing his work when I was a Christian and being like, "Ooh, I want to create some art like that."
Yes.
I was like, those beings, those alien, those higher dimensional, exalted, intelligent beings who have such a peaceful, beautiful, heavenly, celestial culture. I'm like, how come I can't do that? And I remember being a Christian and seeing his work. He was one of the first really like digital metaphysical artists kind of doing his thing. And kind of doing it digitally and such. And so he was actually more of an influence than Alex Gray was, and there are many, many others. But, there's some abstract expressionists that I like, but really, narrative storytelling, by way of anime and by way of manga and such has always been a very much like an influence. Obviously the Matrix is an influence on everybody, but so, but yeah, I mean, just this, it was more about, obviously I really liked, as far as from a film artist is concerned, Stanley Kubrick was very influential. So I'm one of the people who liked Eyes Wide Shut.
Hey,
yes.
Yes.
So I thought it was a really great look at, being a trans woman, I thought it was a really great look at sort of male psychology, as in regards to like sexuality. And I thought that it was really great how your thoughts can lead you down a path, of discovery and of questionable motives. And so a lot of my influences were very much not particularly in line with the kind of things that I draw, but I think that what I'm drawing is sort of like this sort of philosophical take on how humans can sort of self-reflect. And I think filmmakers and anime artists and comic artists have done a lot of that over the years. Mm-hmm.
Oh, love that. And it's so true because like we get so stuck in these proverbial boxes where we just, assume and go with just what we've known, and it becomes tradition versus truth, versus discovery versus like this, like I've said this before, but everything is a breath. It's not this concrete block. It's like everything's moving and still like a breath, and it's going to take shape and it's going to move and it's going to take different forms, and that's everything. That's the human expression. That is, and I think, in my feeble, humble understanding, I can't help but think that consciousness, our being, who we are and what we are collectively, individually, like that's what it is. It's meant to be ever changing and flowing and fluid.
That's beautiful. I love it.
Thank you.
That's so beautiful the way you put that. It's so lovely. Consciousness, humanity, these are such lovely things. We have so much beauty and we have so many ways in which we can show love. Creativity is a way to show love. Even if it's some dark stuff, it's a good way to reflect on, a part of us. And it is like a breath. It is transmissive. It is transparent. It is dimensional. It is like a mist. I think that's beautiful the way you put that. It's really great.
Well, thank you. Again, I feel like it was stolen. I can align with that when you said that earlier, because it's those things that like sometimes you feel something so inherently and you feel it and you speak it, for me, at least anyway, from this experience, it just feels like it has to have come from somewhere, because I just feel like it's been ingrained somehow in my being and my DNA to just feel that, I guess. I don't know, without sounding.
Or maybe you're the one who's supposed to say it.
Okay. Yes. Okay. All right.
I don't know. I think there's something to fate. I don't know. I want to believe that I have autonomy. I want to believe that I have free will. But what if I'm just a program? I really like Tron. Tron was awesome. What if you find out that you're just this is the role you're playing this time? A lot of people have said it. A lot of people have this experience, right?
Yeah.
Through regression or just through different experiences. What if you find out that this is just the role you're playing? And there are certain things you're going to say, and you may find out when you get back, after you get done with this body, you may find out that, oh yeah, I did my part, or I didn't do my part.
Right.
Or maybe I was kind of trying to shut some things down and I should have just let it flow more,
Yes.
Just said, screw it.
Going this way. Right.
I mean, if you want to be honest, some people do really good. They, screw up the world, but they do really good with their part. They become the villain that they were designed to be.
Right. So that's the other thing is that, again, like this, it's cause and effect. So if this component does what it's supposed to do, it causes this effect in this component here, which then affects all these other things, and so on and so on and so on.
Yeah.
In perpetuity.
I do think that, I think there's some bad things. I do believe in that there are some things that are horrible that have happened in history. I absolutely do. I don't think it's, I'm sorry. I am a metaphysician. I am a spiritual person. I do believe in, that everything's happening for a reason. Yes, of course I believe that. But I also believe that we need to have compassion for each other. And we need to be more intelligent when it comes to how we perceive consciousness and what consciousness is, how it dwells in humanity and how it dwells in other creatures, other earthlings, right? And so, yeah, slavery of all kinds has always been bad. There's nothing, I'm not going to say, oh, well, it happened for a reason because now we're all together. Well, screw that. That's horrible. Slavery was horrible. The wars were horrible. There's some horrible, we as humans have done horrible things to each other, but we've also learned from those things. Many of us have. So the question is, what do you do with it? We've risen to the occasion every time in different ways to deal with these different issues. And we're rising to the occasion to deal with all these other issues. As a trans-identified person, a lot of people you hear all kinds of things when you come out as trans, especially when you come out as a Black trans woman. And so, being a Black trans woman, working in corporate, working in a sort of a senior level design position, it's interesting some of the attitudes you get, because some people don't see that as being a sort of valid thing. They have a hard time with it. And it's not that I work with some really cool people, so it's not that I'm getting out all the time. But the conversations that I hear about trans and the people not even wanting to be educated and not wanting to hear the perspectives of people who are trans, not even wanting to have the conversation, that speaks to the fact that, we have a long way to go. We're, as you said, in our infancy. We're, fetuses.
We are.
We have a lot to learn, and we're learning. Yeah.
And that's where I feel like we're at this stage where it's when you know better, you do better.
Yeah. Yes.
And keeping the dialogue going and keeping people informed and just having conversations and getting rid of any stigma to any kind of conversation.
Yeah.
Because to your point, like, I think it's just this, we are who we are. There's no changing that. We are all here for a reason, in my opinion, too. And we are all doing something, and we're all here to learn, but we're also here to teach. I think it's twofold here.
Yeah, we're doing it no matter what. And as much as people, at various junctures want to sort of push back and say, well, what about the classic ideals? What about religion? What about our beliefs? It's like, nobody's trying to leave your beliefs behind. Nobody's trying to do that. But your beliefs may be on the chopping block because you've put them on the chopping block, because you're refusing to evolve. And it doesn't mean you have to change. But when people realize their autonomy and the power they have as souls in a human body to learn, to do better, to do what they need to do for their families, once you realize that, you're not somebody's property, that changes the conversation for a lot of people. The stuff going on in Iran right now, more power, to the women in that culture. Now, I'm not Iranian, so I don't have an opinion, but
fair.
You know what I'm saying? But there's something to be said about you realize who you are. When you know who you are, your creative potential within your lifetime, which is short, okay? What can you do with that? What can you cultivate? What can you share, even with the people in your immediate circle? What can you share? What can you give back? Even if it's just love, which is the greatest thing you can give. But what if you could take creativity and you could package it up and give it away for free? Maybe sell it too. But what if you could package it up and give it away into packets of information, into light language that goes out and fractally hits people in their third eye and lets them know that they also can take the creativity within, and we can help humanity evolve right where we are. That's my petition to people is, what sort of work are you going to do? You're doing the work, Jay. You're doing your work. I'm doing my work. A lot of people are doing their work. But the question is how deep does that hole go? How deep does that rabbit hole go? What could you do? How far can you go? You have to give yourself to it. You don't have to be, you don't have to grind so hard that you don't sleep. But there's a lot you can do in 8 hours. There's a lot you can do in 10 hours. There's a lot you can do in 5 hours. So
I love that. Oh, you can't see it, but I've got tears in my eyes right now because I'm
moved.
100%
We're just sharing. We're just sharing.
But it resonates, and when I feel, and I agree. I couldn't. Oh gosh, it's just doing our part and just. I agree, giving and just trying to move the needle, move it. However, just my biggest thing is just love, just sharing that love and getting people to just open their hearts and their minds to just love more, to care more, that we're all in this together. There's this no one's above anybody. Let's just love. It feels natural for us, but it's challenging for some people. So we got our work cut out for us.
But Jay, you're doing something just so beautiful because you are expanding consciousness with the individuals that you have in your show. You're sort of funneling people in. You're saying, hey, here's a perspective, here's a perspective, here's a perspective. And you can continue to expand infinitely. There's no end to learning. There's no end to expansion. There's no end to how we could find ourselves within these experiences that we're having individually and collectively. And you're doing that. And so much respect to you. Seriously.
Thank you. I'm moved. Thank you so much. But
it's a big thing. I'm just saying it's a big deal. Yeah.
Oh, see, and I'm just motivated by the love and just opening hearts and minds, and that's why seeing your artwork and just being moved by it, reading the words and being moved by it and knowing that, okay, I feel that I resonate with this soul and that there is something here that is just so beautiful. And I want to share that with people. I want to help share that with people, I guess.
Thank you. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Tag team.
And we have a mutual acquaintance. Alan Steinfeld wanted me to say hello.
Oh my God. I love that guy.
Oh,
Alan's so cool.
Alan is the best.
Hi, Alan. Oh my God. I love you so much. You're amazing.
Oh, yes. Alan is the best. And it was great. We were just we happened to be talking about it and we were conversational and talking about art and just transformative art and art that just moves us. And so it was just great to have that connection of oh my gosh, yes, this is great. So
there's some amazing folks, in the world doing some sort of super cool stuff. So it's always great to be connected. And I met Alan because he was using one of my pieces and one of his as a thumbnail on his YouTube channel. And I was like, hey, you're using one of my pieces. I was like, it's totally cool. It's totally cool. It's totally cool. Just, hey, let's talk because I want to connect with you. And then somebody sent me a message and they were like, tell Alan to stop using your art. And I'm like, why? They're having cool conversations. I just want to connect with them. So there have been a lot of connections that have happened just because someone's using the artwork. And I'm totally cool with that, by the way, as long as you aren't selling it. Right. It's supposed to be a connective tool. That's what it's for. I think any work that's done is really sort of connective and can bring people together. And Alan's just one of those many cool people like you that I have the privilege and the honor of meeting and getting to hang out with for a minute, so it's all good.
So I have to ask too. So, if somebody reposts, your artwork, maybe something that's on Instagram, what have you, like, is your criteria just like, hey, give me credit?
Yeah, I mean, you can use whatever you want. I actually put it in I have a little thing at the bottom of my long
I've read it
that I write.
I've read it.
Just say, hey, just credit. Yeah. It's just credit me. It's fine. It's all good. Yeah, as long as you credit me, it's all good. I've had people, want to use it for their little music mixes on YouTube. That's totally cool. It's just, I'm trying to get to the point to where I can do my metaphysical art full time. And that is a big stretch. I mean, I have a corporate job for a reason.
Right.
But if it never gets to that point, that's totally fine. I'm into the job of, I understand that my job is to share that love, and that light through the art, through the messaging within the art, and to put it out there. So I'm going to do it regardless. My thing is, I mean, if you want to show the work, just credit me or whatever, because I want to see it too. My criteria for like tats is, if you see a piece and you want to get like tatted on your body, plenty of people have sent me images of tats that they have of my work on their body. Freaking cool, that's a lot. I don't even have any tattoos myself. So
me neither. I don't either. and I can align because I've had people like, so I'm in a band. And so like, sometimes people like, I'll have different, either I created like this like monogram / glyph that people have tattooed on them, and other artwork from like albums and things like that. It's just so moving. So oh my gosh, that must feel so good to see.
It's crazy. I'm like, wow, that's a big commitment. I mean, one guy got, one of the pieces like on my piece Control Mechanisms, which is the piece that everybody has sort of circulated.
Yeah.
I see people talking about it and they're like, "Ooh, it's a demon. Ooh, it's an angel." It's like this guy has it like on his beautiful chest, and I'm just like, wow, that's crazy. That's pretty. It's a beautiful. Whoever the artist was, they did a great job. But yeah, stuff like that, and I'm just like, wow, I have none. And I'm okay with that. I think I'm okay.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. And then it brings up so many other things too, because like I can again align, like as a musician, like becomes a point, I've always worked, I've toured internationally. I've had albums out. I've had a video on MTV, and that's not like me just like, oh, I'm bragging, but like I've had to always maintain a full-time job. It wasn't lucrative enough. And, I guess I can see the congruence between like, posting artwork, someone, not giving credit or what have you, like to like, even like people streaming music where like, it's just like people aren't really buying the music or buying the art. And you're saying, hey, I love doing this, but like, hey, show a little love here. Like, come on, like,
well, I mean, I sell the prints, I sell the t-shirts. Obviously, people love having wearable art. I will say though, and I'm saying this just as a thing, I don't care. I'm doing the art because I feel like it's what I'm supposed to do.
Right on.
And I feel like it's been a way for me to evolve my consciousness from a spiritual standpoint. And I feel like I've been learning how to do this since I was a kid, and going through the religious path, like I feel like that was a part of it, because it was like, that was my sort of inception into like in this current life. That was sort of like inception into like spiritual thinking, like, oh yeah, there's like this like doctrinal religious thing, a way you could think about it. And then like seeing celestial, metaphysical art while being in the church and meeting like Wiccans and pagans and understanding that this is so much more expansive, this human experience. I feel like it's fun to do it. Like, I feel like it's fun to draw these images. It's fun to channel the words. It's fun to explore the mechanics of the soul and of consciousness and the connectivity between like a higher dimensional being and a human, and a person having a human experience, and how that feedback can sort of result in creativity. And so I feel like it's my job, and I kind of don't care if anybody buys anything. I'm skilled enough to where I can have a corporate job, working in the arts, that's fine. It's just, I'm just saying that it doesn't matter. My business partner and I are doing some NFTs. My business partner is a web developer. She's a super talented programmer. And then we have another guy, Will, who's kind of working with us. Kendra is my business partner. Will is another guy, web developer, who's working with us. Really super cool people. I like the idea of decentralization. It took me a while to kind of get on board with that, and I'm still, a little iffy with it, but I think it's a great way for artists to sort of get some value out of their work, and to create sort of a Web3 based business, to sort of think about business in the future. And so, maybe that might result in that, maybe it won't, but that's not going to stop me from doing my work. I know that it's touching people. Like, I get messages from people all over the world, and I feel like it's what I'm supposed to do. And it's like inside me. And so I'm not going to stop, because it's just who I am. And it's in a way who I've always been. And so, yeah, I mean, share if you want to share, credit me, whatever, but you're not going to stop me from doing it. Even the haters who send me weird messages.
What? Oh my gosh. I can only imagine. Oh my gosh. I can
really just people trying to get me to get back on the path. That's all it is.
Okay. Fair. Okay. Well, not fair, but I understand.
I understand. I was there before. Yeah.
Right.
I get it.
I'm going to send this email. I'm going to send this DM. Yeah. And I can align with everything you said, because like nothing's ever stopped me from wanting to make music and create. Like it's not about, I didn't conceptually, like that inspiration wasn't monetarily based. It was based in that spiritual movement of just like wanting to share. So kudos to you on so many levels.
Kudos to you too. I need to hear your music. I'm sorry. We're just kind of meeting. I'm meeting so many new people over the last couple of years. So you got to send me some some stuff, because I want to rock out to it.
It's loud and abrasive, that I will say.
No, I have a very all-encompassing sort of palette. And so I like, some old school psychedelic rock, I like some Pink Floyd, I like some Led Zeppelin, some old school shit, sorry, I didn't mean to
no. Please, no, uncensored.
I like some 80s rock, but I really like jazzy stuff, jazz is kind of my vibe, so some, post-bop, Miles Davis stuff. Some Coltrane. I like some smooth jazz too. I know that's a sin. It's a mortal sin.
No, not at all. Smooth jazz. Oh my gosh. Heck yeah. Sign me up. It's great. It's awesome. That's the beauty of music and art. And we like what we like. We love what we love. And it's just like, if it moves you, it moves you. You can't help that.
Yeah. Right. But yeah, I like some hard rock. I like some hard alternative rock too. So you're right. You're not going to turn me off. It's going to be good.
All right. Well, I'll send you a link.
We'll see what happens. Yeah.
We'll see what happens. I won't be offended. Like, yeah, this is a little too much. This is just too much. I'll be okay with that.
I'm a Scorpio. You can't offend me. Nobody. I'm a Scorpio. I'm like this. My mind is a really strange place. So there you go.
Awesome. I love that. I love that. See, that's why this works. That's why this works. Yeah. And you after talking with me, you might not necessarily believe that that's me singing or screaming. We'll just say that.
Oh, it's like that.
It's like that.
It's your other self. I get it.
Right. Exactly. But
that's good.
But the message is there. That everything was there. I can align with just like putting it in there, and there's still that message of love, compassion, and empathy. I just had to deliver, in my opinion, not to get off topic, but to deliver it in a way that like I wanted to reach people of a different mind and heart with a different message.
Yes. And I will say that I listen to different types of music when I'm creating sometimes. And so you can always feel the intention. It doesn't matter if it's loud and abrasive or if it's calm, ambient, synth music. The information that's being delivered is there. It doesn't get lost just because, some people maybe aren't as adept at being able to sift through what's being said, maybe, and that's nothing against anybody. That's not, it's just a constructive criticism. It's just that there's this power. Sometimes, I hear really powerful, strong acoustic music, and there's just energy and it's loud, but this sort of power of collective consciousness is embedded in each one of the riffs and each one of the chord structures. And it's just, it's there, but this is something that, as an artist you study, and regardless of whether you're a visual artist or a musical artist or a literary artist or whatever, you study ways and, you study delivery systems. And that's why I say, when you look at the light language of my pieces, these beings, have devised different delivery systems in order to embed information into each other and to embed information into these unknowing humans, and you may not understand what you're getting from it, but you're going to feel a certain way later. And you're going to have the emotional impact of what you listened to or what you saw. But then you're going to have the subconscious aspect of that as well. That programming is going to permeate into you. The job of the creator, albeit the individual of anybody, is to learn different languages, different creative languages. And so when you start looking at everything as communication, a painting with heavy impasto, heavy texture, is a communication piece. A song is a communication piece. A touch is a communication, right? A literary work is a lot of information. So, yeah.
Love this so much.
I just like art. I just
Yes.
like art, honestly. I mean,
Right? Yeah. Absolutely. Like just the fascination with art, architecture, the whole nine. It's just like ever since I was a kid too, I could totally just like, whoa, why am I drawn to this? Why do I like this?
Yeah.
Oh. And so do you have any events or anything new coming up? Do you do gallery showings? Like share some info about some of those things.
Yeah. So I have there's a show called Out of This World that's kind of coming up on the, actually I should get the information really quick here, but it's coming up on the, and I'm actually going to put all this, you can actually, if you go to my link tree on my Instagram, there are links to everything that's going on. There are links to my Discord for my NFTs, there are links to my Twitter, there are links to other things going on as well. There's a show called Out of This World that's coming up that is going to be coming up on the, if I can actually get that here. I'll actually send the information out, but basically go to my link tree. I'll be posting all the information on my Instagram and on my Facebook. There's a show called Out of This World. It's going to be coming up. I think it's the week of the 6th. I think it is that Friday. I think that Friday is the 6th, if I'm not mistaken. That's going to be a show here in Vegas, and it's basically it's going to be the Friday, which is the 7th, at a gallery called Core Contemporary. And Core Contemporary is like a really cool contemporary arts, gallery with a lot of abstract art and such. And it's called Out of This World. It's like an LGBTQ plus show with a focus on aliens and sci-fi and stuff like that. And part of the proceeds are going to a organization called Gender Justice, which is a really awesome organization out here that works for the rights of trans people and for LGBTQ plus people. And then so some of the sale proceeds will go to that as well. As I said, I have my NFTs going on. You can actually go to the Discord, kind of join in. We'll be actually dropping more information soon on that. Follow me on Twitter, follow me on Facebook. You can get all those through my link tree on my Instagram or on my Facebook or on my Twitter. And we're going to be dropping the NFTs in October. We have not decided on a date yet because we have a bit of work that we're still kind of working on.
Sure.
The Oracle deck is going to be coming up soon as well. I've been working on that for like freaking ages, but it's coming up. And I just want to tell people who already follow me, who sent me DMs, that like I need an assistant because I can't get to all the DMs. So I read all my comments, I read all my DMs. I really appreciate each and every one of you. But yeah, the best way to sort of see what's going on is to sort of get on Instagram, get on Facebook, link up with me, send me a DM if you need to. I do read them. I do try to, connect with them, but lots of cool stuff going on. I will post the information for that art show in my Instagram, my Facebook, and such as well, so you can actually kind of check that out. But yeah, just hook it up. On my link tree also is links to my Society 6 page where I sell prints. There's also a link to my Spring page where I sell my t-shirts, which many more shirts have been, requested from my fans. So I'm working on that as well. But everybody, it takes a while to kind of draw these pieces between everything else that I have going on, but it's going to keep going. We're going to keep evolving. If you have ideas, send me some love, whatever, when I post something, give me send me a comment or whatever. If you want to chat, send me a DM, we'll figure it out. So yeah, the best way to do it is just to kind of follow me on social media and I eventually kind of tell what's going on. Yeah.
Awesome. Love that.
Sorry, that was a long.
No. That's perfect. And so for people listening, would that be primarily Instagram?
Yeah, I would say primarily Instagram. If you're looking for the full-on database of all the art, going all the way back to the beginning of 2017, when Transmigration Series started, uh, Instagram's the best. It goes all the way back to that, and then beyond that as well. Facebook is cool too, which is also Art Soldier. It's at Art Soldier 77 is where all my accounts are. Facebook is cool as well. It doesn't go back that far. Twitter's, fairly new. I think I started my Twitter in 2021 or whatever, and I just kind of didn't. I started it and then I stopped. And my business partner's like, "You need to work on your Twitter." So I've been trying to post more on Twitter.
Right on.
I also have the podcast. If you look on Twitter, you'll see this. I'll be posting it here in a minute too on Instagram. But we have the weekly podcast that we're doing too through Discord and Twitter to kind of talk about the art and where it's going. And it's got a more of an NFT focus. But also, I get on there and talk like I'm talking with you, Jay, and sort of, let people ask questions as well. So trying to get more people to kind of join into that. That just started last week. So we're just trying to get a little bit of flow with that too. Mhm.
Awesome. So definitely George and I are going to make sure that we have all the links in the description below so that folks can find you, find the artwork, find the community so that everyone can just get together and just,
Yeah. The Discord's good. We're trying to grow the Discord. I mean, we have like 100 people in there, it's only been up for a couple weeks, so it's not bad.
Heck yeah.
Join in. It's going to get going more once we get the NFTs dropping and stuff like that. And I'm going to just do more in general from a community standpoint. I'm going to try to do some little art jams. We're going to try to do like an Inktober, like a Sci Inktober on my Discord as well. That's going to be more, Sci and, metaphysical topics. So yeah. I'll give you guys all the links so you have them.
Yeah, I would love that. So this way we can include all the links in description. So yeah, I'll make sure that either myself or George will reach out to you, or you can send them to us and we'll get that. We'll make sure those are in the descriptions too.
That's great. That sounds awesome. Yeah.
I love it. And any words that you'd like to share with anyone out there? What are some things that you hope to see in this world?
Well, I think that if everyone sort of embraces who they really are through honesty, through integrity, not through judgment, not even through judgment of yourself, I think it's going to change the way we go about doing things. You can create what you want to create now. There are very few barriers anymore. The idea is this idea of compassion. So when you create your art, whatever it is you're creating, think about that person who's like you, who wants some answers, who wants an expansive view of that path that they're on. Think of yourself as a part of the whole, not as an individual on an island. When you do your work, when you set to draw on a piece of paper, you set to, sort of put words on the page, think about who you're communicating to and let it flow. Training is really important, but passion's even more important. Vision is more important than all of it because we have so much to share and we have so much to learn. So to be really spiritual about it, connect with your guides, connect with your higher self. You ask how? You know how. It's up to you. Look within, get quiet, send out an intention, and you'll find yourself. But you have to be willing to open up to who you really are without bias, without prejudice towards yourself as well. You are a creator. Everyone's a creator. And karma is action. So if you're afraid of failing, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to fail. And through failing, you fail forward and you learn more. So create in any way you know how. And that'll help you to find yourself more than anyone giving you unsolicited advice.
And there you have it. I can't say enough wonderful things about the energy shared in that conversation. And I would implore each and every one of you, please check her artwork out. You can find Kamora Jones on Instagram at ArtSoldier77, as well as Facebook and TikTok, also ArtSoldier77. Be sure to find us on Instagram as well. All the links are below. I cannot say enough wonderful things about this journey of this podcast, just meeting so many amazing people and bringing people together so that we can all partake. We all have a voice. It's time for us to each be our authentic self. So, until next time, take care of one another and keep thinking for yourself.